Hello and welcome back to Herpetological Highlights. This is episode 234. I'm Ben Marshall and co-hosting, as always, is Tom Major. And, well, we have an episode which I think is, I don't know what the most recognizable and most interacted with reptile in the world is, but bearded dragons have to be up there, right?
For sure. Everyone knows what a bearded dragon is. I feel like every time we talk about bearded dragons on the podcast, we're like, oh, bearded dragons, yeah, everyone loves them, but it's true. Like, they are great. I always bring up my cousin Christie's bearded dragon, Chester. Big up, Chester. We need a sound drop for like pouring one out for your fallen comrades, because Chester's not with us anymore. I love Chester.
For fallen Chester.
It was fun. It was fun to look after him. He was named after the lead singer of Linkin Park, also no longer with us, Chester Bennington. Pour one out, pour one out. But yeah, so we're talking about beardies later on. But first, Ben, I think we should have a little catch up because we haven't spoken for a while. And I've had a really busy summer of fieldwork doing bits and bobs. I think I've spoken about, I went to Norfolk to tag eels, but then just recently did another week of tagging eels. And then I've got more eels to tag coming up. I'll be tagging eels on the River Frome.
So many eels.
Next week.
Just masses and masses of eels.
Yeah, well, they're critically endangered, so there aren't that many of them. But the ones there are, we're trying to tag.
So you can tag all of them then?
Well, yeah, if we could catch them all. But they're even slipperier than snakes. Not that snakes are themselves slippery, but you know what I mean? Like, hard to find.
They're slippery in the metaphorical, difficult to capture sense, though.
Totally. And eels, they transcend the metaphorical and bring in the literal in terms of slipperiness. So they're real slippery. But the other thing I did, which is really fun and super cool and scientifically very valuable, was I went to Norway for 9 days on a field trip to southern Norway to Kristiansand. We went to Kristiansand and Rogaland counties, which are like, well, we were in the south of Norway. Kristiansand's the town, and then we went west into Rogaland and, yeah, sampled a bunch of sites with smooth snakes. They got some whopping smooth snakes up in Norway. They were huge.
How did they get so big?
So I was out there with a couple of my collaborators, Beate Ström Johansson and Paul Sorensen, and they reckoned that, and also Beate's partner Olav, who's coming out with us catching snakes, which was really fun. But yeah, they reckon that the reason that the smooth snakes, which we have here in the UK, it's a colubrid species, non-venomous, they think that they get bigger there for a couple of reasons. One is that they delay maturity, so the females don't mate until they're quite old and quite big. They don't find gravid ones until they're quite big. Also, the females, they were saying they think they use the sperm from the previous year copulation. So
okay,
I think that means that the males don't have such a rush to get out and produce sperm in the year. They can mate a bit later, so maybe that affords the males a bit of opportunity for feeding. I don't know. But yeah, I think the slow maturation rate is the main one. And then, yeah, maybe it's just something to do with being at a slightly higher latitude. I don't know why they're so big, but
that's what I'm sort of wondering is how the sort of seasonality varies there that might be playing into that.
It's basically the same as us, but way more extreme. And it's
so why don't we get smooth snakes higher up in the UK then?
Because our smooth snakes are useless. They don't like any habitats. Like, they only like heathland for some reason. I guess I don't know.
We need more smooth snakes further north.
We do. Yeah, but in Norway, they seem to be way more tolerant of a like variety of landscapes. Like, we're finding them in quite rocky areas, which I just would not associate smooth snakes with here. Like, we're finding on these like beautiful picturesque islands, finding them around lakes. But yeah, we caught a bunch of smooth snakes, which was great. We filled in a bunch of sampling gaps for the genetic research we're doing on them. It was also just really cool to see the sites because I'm helping Beate with some other like movement related work on smooth snakes. So it's cool to actually like, you know, ground truth.
It makes a big difference getting a sense of the landscape when you're working with movement data. Like, there is something to be said for moving through the landscape that the animal is moving through in terms of understanding. It does make a difference.
Yeah. But we just had the most fantastic time out there. Like, Beate made us so welcome, and so did Olav, her partner. And yeah, we just caught a bunch of snakes. We got to hang out with the Norwegian Zoological Society for like 5 days, did a little excursion with them. So that was loads of cool people there as well. And also I got to bring Maya, my now wife, as a field assistant, which was super fun. Like, hilarious moment of just like social pressure. but also like immense bravery by Maya, where she found a snake. It was a smooth snake. Maya was spotting snakes, and she spotted a smooth snake, but me and Beata were both like, and Kitty, who my colleague, who we also went with, who's like a geneticist who's like being dragged into the world of snakes by me. And I think she's starting to like it. But yeah, she was also on a trip as well. Yeah.
It'll get there. It'll get there.
Her snake handling skills were extremely impressive, given she had no experience when we arrived. But so Maya, she found a smooth snake on the floor, right? And we're on this like little island, and me and Beata are both like 50 or 100 meters away. We can hear her, but we're not like immediately there. And Maya shouts to me. She's like, I've seen a snake. And I was like, what is it? She's like, it's a smooth snake. And I was just like, are you 100%? And she's like, yeah. Because Beata had said that there were no adders on this island, which is the only venomous snake. But obviously they can swim. So you don't want to be like...
You just can't operate like it's a guarantee ever in that sort of situation, really, can you?
Exactly. So, but Maya was pretty confident. She had a smooth snake in front of her. And I was like, grab it. And then Beata catches wind and she's like, get it. So Maya, a moment of hesitation, then she just reaches down and grabs the snake, picks it up. I was like, wow, fair play. Like, you caught it. And yeah, then it didn't even bite her. She passed it to me and it started biting me straight away. But she was spared, which was quite nice. But yeah, lots of fun captures. Saw my first ever natrix. So the European grass snake.
The OG.
The OG, which when we were kids, obviously the ones in the UK were considered natrix. They got reclassified 5 years ago or so, Natrix helvetica. So technically that was a lifer for me, which was very cool. And we were like, it was such a funny snake
lifer
catch
on a
as well.
technicality. I mean, I love it. But they are different. Yeah. They are different. And it's not like you've gone back to the same place. They've got a different name. It's a different place. They are different snakes. That definitely does count.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if you've seen something and it gets renamed, you've still technically seen it. But the other way around, no, because I hadn't seen one. So anyway, it was such a funny capture though, because basically we'd caught a bunch of smooth snakes near this lake, and then we were also sampling grass snakes and adders if you could find them. And Beata's like, oh, if you walk along the edge of this lake, you know, it's like so picturesque. It's like blueberry bushes and like old dead wood. It's so nice. And she was like, walk along the edge and you might see a grass snake. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll go along. So I sort of like started trucking it along this lake edge, like through the vegetation. And after about 5 minutes, sure enough, I saw a very, very fast grass snake, which I had no chance of catching, like straight through the blueberry bushes and then jumped into the water. And I was like, okay, it's in the lake. And it was like a little drop down into the water, but the water's deep. So what I did then, I stared at the snake unrelentingly, slowly took off my clothes and shoes, and without taking my eye off it, jumped on it into the water, got the snake, legendary work.
That's a hell of a capture, dude.
Straight in one. And I was soaking wet. They all thought I'd fallen in the lake. Beata was like, okay. I was like, I've got a snake. Anyway, swam back, sampled it. Nice little natrix. What was so cool though, mate, is they don't call them melanistic over there because they only call the like ones that are fully black melanistic, but its body was black and then it had like white on the face. Oh my God. Such a beautiful snake.
So yeah, there's probably a term for like almost all the way.
Yeah. But it was interesting because that snake was obviously like highly melanized, quite high latitude. And then we also saw a few adders, I think all of which were melanistic individuals, which was really cool because I hadn't seen them before. Credit to Maya, she spotted those. But yeah, it was just really, really quality time, like hanging out with other people who are as mad about snakes. And it turns out they have them in...
And seems like a super successful sampling effort to boot.
100%. Yeah, it was really, really great.
Winner.
And got to meet a bunch of cool people who I'm sure in time will be covering their papers, and some of them already established herpetologists, which is cool. So just a great trip overall.
Fantastic.
Thanks for inviting us out there, Beata. It was absolutely mint. Just got to get the papers written up now, which is still fun.
But hard work.
Harder work. And it's back on the genomics thing, which is like brain engaged, but yeah, it should be fine. But yeah, been quite busy doing field work and stuff, and now back in the field next week doing eels. But we thought and you're doing a bunch of traveling in the next couple of weeks, I know. So we thought we would get on this while we can.
Get something out while we can.
And as you alluded to earlier, we're talking about bearded dragons, and this paper actually reached us in my favorite way, which is Christopher Wilde, who is the lead author of this paper, we covered another piece of work that he did with his collaborators about the cost of living squeeze in desert lizards.
Oh,
remember?
Yeah.
As the climate warms, their like potential activity windows could be getting less, and it was this thing where like some nocturnal animals might benefit, but a lot of diurnal day-dwelling
shifts
desert
and
lizards
squeezes.
Yeah, it could be too hot for them to operate. So Chris he listens to the podcast and he'd heard that, and in response to us having covered his previous paper, he sent us this paper, which is we love self-promotion. We do it relentlessly, but also, it's just great. It saves us the job of finding cool papers.
As long as it's coming with like something to back it up, which this paper does. Self-promotion, baseless self-promotion, I can't really support.
No. But yeah, this is absolutely well-based.
Yes, very much so.
And a really awesome paper again. So congratulations, Chris. And thanks for sending it to us. And let's introduce it, shall we?
Yes, let's get into it.
So this is by Wilde, Rowe, Curran, Pearson, Schwanz, Georges, and Sarre. Thermal performance curves, activity and survival in a free-ranging ectotherm, published in the Journal of Animal Ecology. And that free-ranging ectotherm is the Centralian bearded dragon, Pogona viticeps, which is the commonly kept household pet species, and so named because it is found in the rocky and desert areas of central Australia. Hence Centralian.
And has a sort of beardiness to it.
It does have a certain beardiness, a certain spikiness, a certain flatness as well, which I quite like about bearded dragons. They're quite wide in aspect.
Yes.
So like all ectothermic animals, so cold-blooded creatures, bearded dragons have to regulate in order to reach their desired temperatures suitable for daily activities. Daily activities for a bearded dragon, things like foraging, mating, drinking, I guess, occasionally if they find some water. But reaching these temperatures is also important. They have to thermoregulate, they have to maybe bask or even sometimes cool down in order to reach the correct temperature. And being the correct temperature is beneficial for those obvious things, but also things like enhanced digestion. If you're the right temperature for digesting your food, you'll digest your food more efficiently. Also things like if a predator comes, say a big bird swoops down, if you're exactly the right temperature, you're quite likely to be more effective at sprinting to evade the predator perhaps. But of course, again, this goes back to the trade-off of basking or cooling down in some way. If you're thermoregulating actively, it takes up energy. You have to spend both time and energy actually getting to the right temperature. So the life of a bearded dragon is kind of this perennial trade-off between being the right temperature, but also finding time to get all your activities and bits done. They have to make decisions. So a decision...
It does go for non-cold-blooded animals, pretty much everything you said. Right, because it's just different mechanisms for maintaining decent metabolism and balancing that between all other demands. It's just these guys need sort of additional focus on that temperature bit because it has to be coming from something external. But the trade-offs exist pretty universally. So I'm going to be a little bit awkward just to start you off because I do like this way of thinking about it with trade-offs because it makes... It's quite an easy way to conceptualize things, right? If I'm doing X, I can't do Y, therefore I'm going to lose out on Y. But it makes them seem like very tidy little rational lizard agents, where they're optimizing between all these different things. I don't really have a particularly concrete point with this trade-offs aspect, but I do think we're definitely going to see. I'm not sure if it really comes up in this paper, but like opportunities to be surprised when the trade-offs aren't, where there's win-wins, sort of, where it looks like a trade-off, but actually it's got some almost sort of like double effect where if you behave in a certain way, you can actually circumvent some of these trade-offs. Maybe the thermoregulation speeding up your digestion, and maybe if you shift your prey type to like lots of small meals, you can actually get away with less thermoregulation without the trade-off of the sort of spending time. So it does, I don't know, maybe that doesn't undermine the rationality, the sort of rational agent bit of it, but it's a useful simplification, but I'm just waiting for those like weird and wonderful side cases that completely throw it off by behavior or by just certain individuals or a particularly weird species. And I suppose, well, I don't know. When we get towards the end of this paper, we might have a little bit of a point on how what you'd expect might not be actually what's happening, because I think that this paper does have a couple of points that
I think it's got a bit of a twist in the tail.
that hit that, but less of the trade-off thing. Almost, I don't know, it almost tricks my brain into thinking about it in quite a sort of reduced manner. And then this papers like this, I think, do a nice job at opening it back up and forcing you to rethink what you'd potentially assume with what counts as a trade-off.
Let's talk about the ways in which they open it up, because I think this paper is kind of, well, much like the one we did about the lizards squeeze, the cost of living squeeze. I think it's quite novel in some ways, because this paper tries to answer questions about animals thermoregulating, which we're really only familiar with seeing from papers in the lab. You know, you get a lizard, let's say, and then you test its running capacity at various different temperatures. And then you're like, oh, look, it's best at running at 35 degrees. 35 degrees is the best temperature for this lizard.
Yeah. Either
or like
directly measuring respiration, or you're directly measuring, you have some sort of preference trial to work out what they prefer and infer that that's probably optimal for their continual maintenance of.
And so they did do that in this paper. They did have they got some preferred body temperatures from lab animals, and they were checking to see if they could correlate the body temperature with the surface temperatures, because they were taking surface temperatures in the wild, stuff like that. But they also added a field element. So they were putting accelerometers. So that's like the thing which tells you which direction the animal is moving in small scale, like in your phone.
Same as your phone. Giving you, they have X and Y in this case for these.
Okay, so it's either forwards and backwards or up and down. Oh no, Y is forwards and backwards, is it? Is X side to side?
I mean, when it comes to 3D stuff, I would think X and Y, well, they call it heave and surge. And I think Z would be pitch if it was vertical. So I think X and Y is forwards, backwards, left, right.
Okay, gotcha.
I think.
Okay, or something like that. And then they also
2 dimensions.
Yeah, 2 dimensions. They also measured their temperature in the wild. And then they were also collecting some environmental stuff about what they were and what they were doing. And yeah, so they're taking a lot of information about these individual lizards.
Huge amount of information. I think that's what makes this really such a worthwhile paper, is they've got so many different data streams that all come together to answer all these different parts of this question. Because we've got, environmental temperatures, their movement, their sort of activity.
Yeah.
It's damn impressive.
And they did it for a number of seasons to see if there were seasonal differences. And I mean, how do you want to go through this? Should we just start picking out some interesting things about?
I think so. I think we can just sort of hit on some sort of fun findings, and then probably tie it all together with a sort of general, what the sort of takeaway is. I think one thing I think people might find intriguing from the bearded dragon people being very familiar with these animals is that males and females had different preferred body temperatures.
Yes.
Which I don't know, maybe that's quite widely known or not, I don't know. But in this case, it was about a difference of, was it 4 degrees?
Something like that, about 4 degrees.
Which is pretty...
With females liking it warmer.
Statistically significant. But that is also 4 degrees is not... That's noticeable. Very noticeable.
If you're in an office environment and somebody, in fact, I've lived experience of this.
Exactly.
So I used to work in an office with loads of different people of all ages, and there were some people there who were really keen on having it super hot. It was 20. We had arguments about whether or not 23 degrees Celsius was a comfortable room temperature. I was firmly in the no camp. Don't put that thermostat above 21 unless you want me to be visibly suffering. And there was many people who were like, no, 23 is fine. I was like, listen, I could adapt to this, but it's going to take 6 months. I don't want to live at this temperature.
See, I think it's all about
the same
contrast.
For bearded dragons.
I think it depends what it is outside.
You think it's all about contrast?
20,
okay, well,
if you had rooms heated to 23 in the winter, that's nuts.
Yeah, that's wild. But yeah, so males like it a bit cooler than females was one thing that was quite interesting. If they have their absolute choice, females probably like it around, I don't know.
34.
Probably 34, and males is close to 30.
29-ish.
29-ish. So and males like it cooler.
I think just holding on to that and to segue into another finding is this has knock-on effects for their thermoregulation, because you've immediately got this instance where the optimum temperature for females is higher than males. It puts a greater onus on them to reach that temperature. So you immediately see this in the basically how well and sort of how efficiently they're thermoregulating, is that it does seem that males tend to be more effective at reaching that optimum temperature, but partly that could be explained because they're not having to basically reach a higher temperature. And I think what was this particularly pronounced?
Spring and autumn.
It's spring and autumn, was it?
Well, males are definitely closer in spring and autumn, I think, because they don't have that onus to get quite so hot. But then when it comes to summer, the males are generally hotter than they want to be, whereas females are closer to where they want to be.
Right. So you've got this sort of changing through the seasons, which to me, I do wonder whether that's synced up with prime times for activity for these two different sexes, right? Like potentially their peak thermoregulatory time is going to sync up with their peak sort of needs to be as effective in terms of movement and behavior as possible, maybe.
It could be.
I don't know what the breeding times and activity sort of shake-up is of these guys.
I actually don't know. And also it's all in opposition because it's the Southern Hemisphere, which makes it, for me at least, a little confusing.
Also true.
Wait, so all their seasons are upside down, are they? What's going on?
I know. So something you instantly take for read when you read certain words that they come with certain things, but there's no reason they should.
But yeah, I don't know. I would work under the assumption that the males were in spring coming out and trying to spermatogenesis, make sperm, and then mating in the spring, and then females gestating in the summer to lay eggs in the summer sometime, maybe in early autumn.
So it makes sense that their optimizations are skewed.
Yes, that's a really good point, actually. And it does make sense that the males, if you're assuming that in spring they're busy running around catching as much food as possible in order to get strong and mate, then they're very well fitted to that cooler temperatures in spring. Whereas the females in spring are feeling a little bit chilly. Whereas when it comes to summer, where presumably I would imagine they're feeding up and maybe even...
Yeah, I mean, so I've suggested that thermoregulation is going to be well synced to these behaviors, but it could also be the opposite, right? Talking of trade-offs, is you have less time to thermoregulate when you're busy doing other things, and therefore that thermoregulatory effectiveness that they're seeing is counter to the behaviors as well.
And staking on this sort of seasonal element, generally during winter, it's harder for them to thermoregulate because they're lower ambient temperatures, and there is also limited time to achieve their thermal preference because there's less daylight, although I don't suppose that'd be that extreme. But because of this, if it's lower temperatures, not reaching their desired body temperature as effectively, and they're also not thermoregulating as effectively. And they saw that in the winter, when they weren't thermoregulating as effectively, when they're a little bit too cold, this also coincided with decreases in other temperature-dependent traits like their locomotor performance, so how good they are at running around, and also their fine scale activity, which is like how far they're moving around per hour.
Yes, I was saying I didn't know the activity, but they do show the activity, and they're most active in the summer, spring and summer. Yeah, males particularly active in the spring compared to females,
and that corresponds with them having the most effective thermoregulation. So as you might expect, effective thermoregulation means successful lizards. But it was more to it than that. They also were interested to notice that despite variation in like the seasons and the available temperatures, the lizards were pretty fixed on what they wanted to try and get to in terms of temperature. So their optimal temperature seems to be quite set, and they're consistently trying to reach it throughout the year, rather than like maybe you'd think in winter maybe they'd be able to operate at a lower temperature, but nah, they really don't like to do that. And they call it a constrained thermal optimum. So this like preferred temperature is quite fixed, and it suggests that they will have to thermoregulate regardless. So there isn't a time of year where they're not really going to have to worry about it. They're always going to have to think about it.
There's always something.
But you mentioned, Ben, that there was a bit of a sting in the tail, a bit of a twist in this paper. And I think historically, we mentioned previously that people have kind of worked out things like the animal's best bite performance, the animal's best running performance at certain certain temperatures in the lab. And then they've always said, okay, well then...
Little animal Olympics sort of situations.
And it's like, well, okay, if this is the temperature it's best at biting, it's the temperature it's best at defending itself from predators, that's probably the most perfect temperature for fitness.
Peak performance.
And so logically, you'd expect that the best locomotory performance, the best running around, the peak, would be the time when animals were most able to escape from predation.
Right.
And in a laboratory study, that'd probably be what was assumed. However, in this study, what they found was that times when the maximum locomotory performance, so times when the lizards were performing at their best because of good temperatures, were also strongly linked to their mortality. So they were more likely to die when they had the perfect conditions for sprinting, right?
Yes.
Higher maximum performance. Or basically, yeah, if they're at a temperature where their performance is maximized, it decreases their chance of survival in the kind of immediate term.
Yes, I'm just double checking that it's varies by time and it's not just individuals' maximum performance that they did, but I think it is with time, isn't it? Because that's kind of the whole point.
Because they got those values based on their... So this is in opposition to other studies which have kind of suggested that maximum locomotory performance, e.g. being at the perfect temperature for jogging about, is beneficial to survival in the wild because you just assume it was beneficial.
Like you can get away. It's escape tactic. When they highlight in this that there's good evidence that the primary cause of death in these lizards is depredation by whatever eats them.
Animals. Yeah. Birds.
Presumably. Yeah. But that's not necessarily the case. And this opens a lot of
Pandora's box is what it opens, mate.
Yeah, it really does. It's really, really intriguing.
So you've basically what it suggests, okay, so it's like, well, they're the perfect temperature for running around. In theory, they should be at peak ultimate lizard performance, the best beardy they've ever been. They're at the top of their game. Why are they dying? Well, because they think it's probably due to risky behavior. So maybe these lizards, which are so hell-bent on reaching the perfect temperature and operating at their absolute maximum, they love that feeling of being the right temperature, maybe. They're dying. And it could be because when they're finding these right temperatures, when they're putting all this energy and effort into thermoregulation, they're performing risky behaviors. So maybe they're sitting out in the open that extra 5 minutes to reach that temperature. That's an extra 5 minutes that some kind of hawk could come down and tear them asunder and eat them. So yeah, massive contradiction in what they expected, I think, in terms of the survival being related to the sort of performance.
Yes, but it makes perfect sense in the sort of trade-off aspect, right? Because it's a trade-off in positive trait is leading to a decrease in survival or a decrease in reproduction. It's just this particular one needs an additional bit of explanation to be able to get from why being a better performer wouldn't also improve survival. And I think that behavior as an explanation, I think is really, really solid. But it does make me question all the trade-off ways of thinking, basically, because you want to have this nice like this or that, and here we have something that doesn't seem like a this or that. It seems like you're putting all this extra energy and you're being penalized for the survival. So what's the benefit of higher sort of thermal performance if it's not linked to survival? Like, what's the point? Is it just that they're not doing as well? But it's so hard to really commit to that when it's thermal. These are the fastest beardies. Surely that benefits them in some way, but it's not being borne out by survival.
It's not being borne out by survival, but survival is a very blunt measure, isn't it? Because it's just binary. You're either alive or you're
but it's
dead.
also a really potent one when it comes to evolution.
Oh, 100%. But I guess if those beardies, while they are alive, are doing better, performing better.
Maybe they're reproducing more. Maybe they can reach more females or something in the male's case. Or maybe in the female's cases go further and find better nesting sites, and it's a live fast, die young sort of attitude.
You know, for the females, you could see the benefits of being at optimal performance. Like things like finding the best mate, best resources, I guess, best gestation if you're perfect temperature.
It has to be a reproduction thing rather than a food thing, Because if the survival's being impacted, then you're not having a chance to use that increase in resources necessarily, right?
Well, yeah, but only like...
So it's got to be something that can sort of go beyond you, right?
I suppose so, but like maybe it's worth having the higher mortality because if you don't die, you're so much better. It's quite a difficult one to get your head around.
Yeah, that's what makes it so fascinating. I kind of... This paper has so many so many bits of information that just make you want to know more, and it does. Yeah, I wonder if it's just like what did we call them before when we were talking about? I can't even remember what it was. I think it might have been different coloured frogs having slightly different approaches to sort of solving the same reproductive competition sort of problem. And I wonder whether it is a lifestyle thing. I know that's a weird word to say, but like there are some benefits there that make it really worthwhile that aren't being entirely captured by this data set.
It makes you wonder if there is an element of personality in it as well. Like
100%.
You've got like the keen bean lizards that are like, I'm going to thermoregulate perfectly every day. And then they're just like, they're living, they're absolutely crushing. They're crushing. Like their reproductive metrics off the chart, mate. Food consumption. Wow, huge. But then it's like, they're actually little mugs that just run out into danger 24/7. And they're in the rat race.
Hawks.
Yeah, they're like the rat race beardies. And then you've got the stone cold chillers who are just like, mate, chill out. Like, look, if I'm not at my optimum body temperature, what's going to happen? Nothing.
But it's good enough.
It's good enough. I'm not sitting out waiting for a bird to eat me. I'll sluggishly bust around and do my thing. Like, yeah, maybe I don't win every male-male combat. Maybe I don't. But who cares? Because I'm alive.
I mean, that's the other sort of aspect of it. It's the competition side of things that's, almost definitely factoring into this. And it's this study has so many things going on in it regarding the good external temperature things, the lab-based calibration of how they're getting in the field body temperatures, the tracking and their location stuff, the accelerometer stuff. There's so much going on. And I feel bad for being so like, I just want more because it does such a good job at painting this full picture. I want the almost, we had, God, I'm doing so bad for remembering studies today, but we had one where they were putting out food in different habitats and identifying...
That was the one on the shinglebacks.
What was that?
The shingleback skinks one.
Was it shinglebacks? Oh, that's probably why it's jumping to mind. But they had metrics of like how quickly animals could find food and things along those lines. I'm wondering if these live fast, die young one, like you could do that in this context if you had longer term tracking and then had putting out bait and sort of measuring different lizards' response to novel resources and things like that. You've got another aspect of maybe the behavior that you could infer. Okay, well, the live fast, die young lizards are also more willing to take a risk when it comes to new food sources. So maybe that's the benefit. Lower survival from predation, but higher boldness when it comes to resource acquisition. And it's just
makes you wonder if like spending all that time at the optimum temperature makes them feel like they can do anything. They feel unstoppable. Whereas if you're a couple of degrees out, you're just like, oh,
unmotivated. Well, so there you go. It might not even be a personality thing, but something which is tied to whether you've warmed up effectively, and that colors the behavior as well as a sort of maybe personality level tendency.
Really interesting stuff. And obviously at the end of the paper, they talk a little bit about physiological traits being relevant in a changing climate because they've got that to contend with too. In central Australia, it's probably going to be getting quite warm.
Yes.
But a really fascinating paper again. Bearded dragons, their adaptability, their variability in what they do about thermoregulating. Very cool stuff.
Yes.
And we're going to move on. We've got a brand new species of frog. Right on. So this is a paper by Petzold, Glaw, Mullin, Rakotoarison, Raselimanana, Cottini, Orozco-terWengel, Kohler, Protzel, Vences, Hofreiter and Scherz. So this is entitled A Preliminary Assessment of the Diversity in the Frog Genus Anilany with Description of a New Species from Western Madagascar. Here we go. So yeah, congratulations to all these authors, a lot of whom we know in various guises. It's been a while since we covered a paper of a species described by Mark Scherz, which is a bit of an injustice. Sorry, Mark. Here we are doing one, though. I think we even got some stick from him about that when we met him.
Some stick from
He's
him,
like, mate, I'm describing species. Why are they not on the podcast?
Well,
it's like, good question, Mark, and I don't really have an answer for you.
We did
so here we are.
This is the answer.
We should be covering them. This is the answer. The answer is yes. Here it is. Cool frog. Congratulations. And cool, brand new species. So we're in Madagascar. We're in the north of Madagascar, and we're talking about a little genus of frogs called Anilany.
They are little. They're little guys.
Little tuckers, are they? How little?
Like 15 millimeters to like 18 millimeters.
Small. Did well to even notice it. So
tiny little guys.
So this is following on from another species which was described recently, and they're really cool little frogs. That was Microhylidae. And you said these are small frogs, Ben, but I think this new species is actually characterized by its bigness compared to its congeners, at least.
Well, okay. I mean, if you're comparing it to smaller frogs, yes. But in the grand space of frogs, and in fact, in the grand space of animals I see day to day, it's a little frog.
So basically, I think the reason they found this frog, it looks like it was a speleological expedition. Is that caving?
Like spelunking?
Yeah, it must be, right?
Well, they do have a wonderful picture of one of the frogs in a cave, not the newly described species, but the Helene. Thank you.
Yeah, because it's named for someone called Helen. So I think it's just Helene, which is also a beautiful frog. It reminds me of the little microhylids from Thailand.
And has been found in a cave.
Has been found in a cave. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the new one. And what have they called this one? Anilany...
Casticola.
Caustic. Now that's a name. Very cool.
Words. Dweller in the casts.
Dweller in the casts. Not very original, is it, for a reptile or an amphibian to be closely associated with these limestone karst environments, but they love it.
I mean, it's a classic, isn't it? It's a classic.
They do love it.
And
it's a beautiful frog, actually.
Casticola is such a wonderful word to say.
It really is. It actually is superb. So big name, love it. And it's a nice looking little frog, you know. It's got like a rusty red back, sometimes with a bit of a brown pattern, sometimes more plain. And then like brown along the flanks with really nice white spots on the sides and on the belly. And yeah, it's just a very delicate, beautiful little creature.
Slightly grumpy little pointed face. Got slight sort of furrowed eyebrows, I would say.
We know anything about the natural history? Oh, inhabits a karstic limestone environment.
As inferred by the name, implied by the name even.
Yes. And very active after rain, in the late afternoon and in the evening. And the males can be found sitting on logs calling or on rocks, singy rocks, which is the karst limestone, around a metre off the forest floor. They were never seen cooling on the forest floor, suggesting maybe they know better. Maybe there's risks. And they've not recorded the advertisement call, so we can't play it because science doesn't have it.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. But yeah, another new species from Madagascar. I think there could be many more coming. But yeah, really cute.
Well, I think that's the implication even by this study, correct? I mean, that's I think it's pretty much promised.
Oh yeah, they're microendemics, and they have quite long distances between the locations where the frogs of this genus are found, where the different species are found. So, you know, that suggests that there's this kind of sort of Sky Island type situation, or, you know, something's changed in Madagascar.
Well, it's a classic karst. Yeah, it's the karst effect again, isn't it? Where they've all got their own little zone and they all sort of specialise for whatever reason, or at least diverge.
But yeah, this is really cool. So yeah, congratulations to all the authors and friends on this one. Another nice new frog. Google it, check it out. It's a cool looking little thing. Have you got any other business, Ben, for this week?
I don't think so. I'm having a tough time remembering what we've covered on podcasts previous times. Have I mentioned trade paper about origins of wildlife trade?
I think so. You did that when it was preprint. Has it come out?
Oh, it is out. It's out in Current Bio.
Current Bio, mate. Well done.
Yeah, it's there. It's not dramatically changed from the preprint other than word count
Oh God, didn't you have to chop like 5,000 words out of that or something?
It was a big chop. It was a big chop, but a lot of that information is sort of in the supplements now, so it's not like it's gone.
Oh yeah, no, good. You didn't just burn it.
No, not burnt. So yeah, that's out and about, and hopefully has some use. But if I've already talked about it, then we can move on.
Oh, well, okay. Well, yeah, just briefly, what's it about?
20 years of US import data for quote unquote wildlife, and trying to get a handle on where it's coming from, with some pretty big question marks over different aspects of the sort of accuracy of the collected data, but still highlights some pretty big hotspots for different groups, potentially suggesting sort of re-export hubs, because there's a lot of species coming from these areas that are not native, despite them being listed as wild caught in the data. Questions over exactly whether they are wild caught or not, but if you're taking the data as what it's saying, it looks like, I mean, just trying to remember off the top of my head, Germany was coming up as a hotspot for like reptile and arachnid movements into the States, and had a lot of non-native species moving via Germany. That's not, I don't think, massively surprising. I think South Africa popped up for mammals, if I'm remembering correctly. This is all off the top of my head, and I haven't looked at this stuff for a couple of months now. So do go double check the paper. Yes, there's some questions there, and I think it's basically just sort of, once again, like a lot of these papers we've done, highlighting maybe we need a better, more joined up way of keeping an eye on this stuff, because it's kind of assumed to be okay if it's not illegal, but it kind of probably isn't, because just the scale of it and the questionable documentation of it is a problem. And the US data we're looking at it has big problems with it, but other parts of the world, you don't even get this. So there's really a clear need for just better monitoring of wildlife trade just in general. And there's so many reasons for doing that. Sustainability stuff, keeping these animals actually existing in the wild, disease transmission, like decent, equitable distribution of who's getting paid for this industry, the whole lot. It's kind of wild how how few eyes are on it, despite how much work. I know there's a lot of people working on it, but there's still a lot more to be done.
Yeah, I think it's easy to underestimate the weight of impact it can have if people turn their attention to something, particularly if it becomes fashionable, or even if it doesn't even have to be that fashionable if they're small populations. But cool, man. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes. Current bio is open access, is it not? So people can read that?
It isn't. I think This one, it's not, but becomes open access a year after it's been there or something, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay.
That being said, you can always just get in touch and I'll send you a copy. Don't worry about it. So,
of course,
if people want it, I will send it on as quickly as I possibly can.
Academics would like you to read their work. Ask them, and they will oblige. It just might take a month. So, Ben will get back to you quicker than that, though. So, right,
I think my best. Well, it's got so many authors on it. Anybody, you do a request on ResearchGate, somebody will get to you within a day, I reckon. There's something like 12 authors.
I've got like one paper like that with a lot of authors, and I've never once been the first to ResearchGate request on
No, I keep seeing the email. I'm like, oh, look, that came in yesterday evening. I'll do it first thing in the morning as I'm checking my emails in the morning. It's already been done, already been dealt with.
Yeah.
We've got people in different time zones. You'll get it real fast.
The Koreans are working on it while we sleep.
Yeah, so, exactly.
I think, I just wanted to shout out a few patrons. So I might have shouted you out before, but hey, what's two shout outs? Massive thank you to Jonathan, Xander, Nick, and Kyla, all our new patrons, for supporting us, keeping the lights on. And if anyone else wants to support the podcast with money, you can at patreon.com/herphighlights. We're scientists. So any money gratefully received. And I think that's about
scientists with academic contracts are running out at the end of the year.
Yeah, mate. Both of us are going to be jobless soon, aren't we?
Both of us.
I've actually been considering whether or not you're going to be applying for jobs. When I'm applying for jobs, I'm like, God, Ben's probably going to apply for this one.
I have some behind the scenes numbers on stuff I've applied for, and it's nuts out there. It is nuts.
That's deeply troubling. What, in terms of like number of applicants?
Uh-huh. As in over double previous years.
Blimey.
Like record-breaking stuff. It's crazy.
That's extremely disheartening.
I'm so sorry, dude. I'm so sorry. I'm right there with you. It's It's a great time.
Well, yeah. It's a really bad time, isn't it? Oh well. Anyway, let's not blight the podcast with our employment woes. Let's end. So, like I said, patreon.com/herphighlights if you want to support the podcast. If you want to get in touch with us, herphighlights@gmail.com. We're also sporadically on Instagram and TikTok. You can find me T_E_major or at herphighlights on Insta. And yeah, I think that's it really. All that remains to be said is thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.